Good morning and thanks for joining us for the Sellerdeck SSL Security Webcast. For more information you can visit sellerdeck.co.uk/SSL. It's the 6th of September, my name is Lynden Singh and I'm a Digital Security Advisor. On today's topic we'll be talking about SSL certificates, the importance of them on your website and the benefits of having them. The topics we'll cover today: what is SSL? And what's an SSL certificate? The Google approach and recommendation to SSL certificates, the changes to GDPR and data protection, things to remember and consider when enabling SSL, and we'll cover off some of the frequently asked questions as well. But before we begin, let's cover off some quick terminology. When we talk about the term SSL, we refer to secure communication. So two devices being able to talk to each other securely, whether that be your desktop talking to your website, whether that be a tablet, whether that would even be a mobile. It's all about the communication method between the two. Now SSL has been deprecated, and it's been deprecated for a good number of years, but much like the word Hoover has stuck when we refer to vacuum cleaners, SSL is the broad term that's used across the industry when we talk about secure websites. The actual technical name is TLS, and that stands for Transport Layer Security, and that's like an updated version of SSL, if you like. We've got web servers, which is the place on the internet where your website's stored online and where your visitors access and your pages are essentially served from. We've got your domain name, which I'm sure everybody knows. That's the address that people punch into their website address bar or into Google, into somewhere similar to be able to access your website. We've got SSL certificates, which is the topic of conversation for today, and it's a type of product that can be installed to switch on secure encrypted communication. And then we've got HTTP and HTTPS, and that forms part of the domain name and it indicates whether the connection that you're using is secure. HTTPS for secure is secure. So coming on and talking about SSL versus non-SSL websites. An SSL website features an encrypted connection where the information that's passed from your computer to the website is encrypted. And what that means is that nobody on the outside world can see the information that's being entered into that page or the information that's being pushed back. You'll begin to see that SSL is now the standard when it comes to websites. Everything from your bank through to Facebook, through to LinkedIn, through to your email, all now have an SSL certificate. And that's indicated by the green padlock that's in the address bar, which you can see on the screen. There are still some websites out there which don't have an SSL certificate, and for websites that just provide a level of information or a blog, an SSL certificate isn't necessarily required. An SSL certificate is most beneficial when personal information is being captured, either through a contact form or a login page or a checkout process. You'll see that the diagram on the right hand side here shows the connection between the visitor through to the internet, through to the website over HTTP. And with doing that, there's always a risk that there could be a potential attacker in the middle seeing the information that's being transmitted. And the reason why that's possible is that the information on a non-SSL website is transmitted in plain text. So anything that's sent and anything that's received could potentially be seen. So now that we've covered the technical side of SSL and SSL versus non-SSL websites, let's talk about a couple of the benefits. We've already covered off reducing the risk of attackers and cyber attacks, and we also know that implementing an SSL certificate on a website to make it secure encrypts the information that's being sent and received. One of the other benefits of implementing an SSL is the trust element. Customers are now well trained, they do spot and look for the padlock, and that's there. And people know before they part with their card information that the page they need to put their information into should be secure. So that's really, really important. And we can thank the years of awareness from the banks and building societies around that for educating customers that that's what they should be looking out for. And there's an element of compliance in this as well. In March 2018, there's a big change to legislation which will mean that e-commerce sites should introduce SSL when capturing sensitive information, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next couple of seconds. So the big bad Google, it's either a love or a hate relationship, or a love-hate relationship. We love it, we love the traffic that comes from it and the customers. We hate it because we don't really understand it and we don't always know what makes Google tick. But Google have actually been quite transparent in some stuff around SSL, which is really, really helpful. Google are in the process of penalising non-SSL websites, and they're doing that through not ranking them as high as websites with SSL certificates. And the users of the Google Chrome browser are now seeing error messages like the one on screen about pages not being secure. And Google have recently extended that this year, and they're going to be making some further changes in October this year, where any page that has a login form or a contact form or requires any piece of personal information, Google will pop up and let the user know that the site isn't secure. So it's really, really important that if there's a form on a page, that page is protected by a secure certificate. And what we can draw from this is that Google will be making further changes in the next year, which will penalise websites which capture sensitive information even further. And no doubt Google will publish a bit more information in October when it makes its next batches of changes. So on to GDPR. It's the big thing that nobody really understands. Nobody's necessarily an expert, but we do understand a couple of key points. So GDPR is essentially the big replacement for data protection, and data protection hasn't been changed really in over a decade. And it's a bit outdated, and there's lots of grey areas when it comes to e-commerce sites, shopping online, and how sensitive information should be stored on websites. And the GDPR legislation covers everybody that's transacting within Europe. So whereas data protection only applied to the UK, GDPR is applicable to any business, irrespective of the business's location. If they're servicing customers within the European Union, they will be bound by the GDPR legislation. And there's some pretty hefty fines around that, up to 4% of the annual turnover of any business. And to quantify that and make that make a little bit more sense, the recent TalkTalk breach, which cost TalkTalk the best part of £500,000, would have cost £18 million under the new GDPR scheme. So it's pretty scary stuff. Now, it is the case that GDPR and the requirements around GDPR aren't actually too clear, but there's a couple of things that we do understand from GDPR so far. And the first one is that there is a section in the GDPR legislation which states that websites do need to encrypt customer data at the point of transaction and when storing customer information offline. So that's customers entering their details into your website, and that covers that process. And when you take that information down and you store that, there needs to be a level of security and compliance around that. There's also some changes around the classification as to what personal data means. Whereas under data protection, your address, your national insurance number, your date of birth are all regarded as personal data, GDPR really flips that on its head and counts anything that can personally identify you, from your first name through to your email address, even down to your browsing IP address of your internet connection, as personal data. So there's a big obligation on businesses to ensure that they're keeping all of that information secure and they're processing it in the correct way. And we'll look to cover GDPR in a little bit more detail when the framework's been publicised in a little bit more detail, and no doubt we'll have some webinars and we'll send out some communications as well. So if you're not subscribed to our mailing list, make sure you are on the website. So things to consider and check when enabling an SSL certificate on your website. We need to double check that all the pages of your existing site are redirecting to the secure version, the HTTPS version, and that can be achieved through a series of redirects. And we need to make sure that any references to any external scripts, whether it's live chat systems, whether it's a form of analytics, or whether you've got any sharing plugins, are all using HTTPS, and that would be changed in your HTML code at the top of the page. One of the points that lots of people miss is that you need to re-verify your domain in Google Search Console or Google Webmaster Tools for the old school among us. And when you're in there, you need to make sure that you add the HTTPS version of your site as a new property within the Search Console. And if you're not using Search Console, it's really important that you get yourself set up on that, because it will show the landing pages where people are landing onto your website. It will also show you the keywords that people are using to find your website. Really invaluable information when you're looking to optimize your site. And likewise as well, if you're making use of analytics, whether it's Google or whether it's some other tool, you'll need to log into the appropriate platform there and just make sure that you've updated it so Google knows that you're looking at the HTTPS version of your website. If you're not using analytics, if you're not using Google Search Console, Webmaster Tools, take a quick look at our blog at sellerdeck.co.uk. There's an absolutely fantastic blog up there about the benefits of using Google Analytics and Search Console to improve your rankings, improve your visitor rate, and improve your sales. You also need to enable the SSL TLS checkout option within the Sellerdeck software, and one of our support team can help with that if you need any support getting that tick box enabled. And the most important part is do a run through after you've uploaded your website. Do a run through, make sure all the pages are loading as to expected, all the images are in place, all of the add-ons, any external add-ins, plugins are all functioning as they should. So moving on to some frequently asked questions around SSL certificates. One of them, in fact, the most common question that we get asked is, we already use Sellerdeck Payments, WorldPay, SagePay, PayPal or something similar. Are the transactions already protected? And the answer is yes. Your card details are secure, but any other pages across the site which prompt for any sensitive information, for example, contact forms, login pages, or the checkout, are not secure. So it's really, really important that an SSL certificate covers those pages, and especially the checkout page, which leads up to the screen where a customer enters their card information. The Sellerdeck payment screen, the WorldPay screen, the SagePay screen will all only cover the payment screen and not anything leading up to it. Another question that should be asked is whether an SSL certificate should just cover the checkout or the entire site. From a best practice point of view and Google's recommendation, switching SSL on for the entire site covers every page, every form on your website, and should be the way to go. Which conveniently takes us into the next question that we're asked quite frequently, is whether SSL slows the website down. And what we've seen over the last 3 to 5 years is that the speed between SSL websites and non-SSL websites is now negligible. So there's absolutely no disadvantage in switching SSL on for your website. Can you get any help for configuring SSL? Sellerdeck actually offers a managed SSL install service, which includes the installation of your certificate, updating your Sellerdeck software to enable the SSL certificate, and switching on the redirects on your website as well. And they'll run through and they'll test that with you to ensure that you're completely happy in the way that it works. More information on that can be found from our sales team. You can email sales@sellerdeck.com, or you can find it on the website at sellerdeck.co.uk. I'd invite you to ask any questions, either about SSL certificates, website security, reducing business risk, or even GDPR. My contact details are now on screen. I'm Lynden Singh, Digital Security Advisor for Sellerdeck. My contact number is 01932 358 378, and I can be contacted at lynden.singh@sellerdeck.com. More information about SSL certificates and website security will be found at sellerdeck.co.uk/SSL. Thank you for taking the time to watch this webinar on SSL certificates and SSL security. There'll be more webinars in the future covering everything from Google Analytics right through to GDPR and what that means to your business.